Hello and welcome. This is Bill Wake from Industrial Logic. We're here today to do the video story refactoring kata. If you haven't met me, you probably may have heard my name for the INVEST acronym or a couple books I've worked on in refactoring. But today we're going to do one from Martin Fowler. This video story refactoring is right from the refactoring book that he wrote with several other people. And thanks to Martin for the permission to use this. Let's go ahead and get right into it. So this is the test for the thing. We've got a customer object of some sort. We're creating a customer for Bob. We're adding a bunch of rentals of different sorts, and then we're printing a statement, and we're checking the contents of the statement. Just a very basic sort of high-level test. When you look at customer, it has the name of the customer and the record of the rentals that the customer has, and there's a couple accessors for those. And then the core of this is this statement method, which you can see it's a long method. It doesn't even fit on my screen. It calculates the total amount, the renter points, all the rentals, walks through them, classifies them based on the movie type, and calculates a line item for each one, and then a total for everything. So we're going to tackle cleaning this up, and there's really kind of two directions. One is we know there might be different kinds of movies, so I guess you can think of renting other things these days because movies kind of come through Netflix or something more. But at any rate, when this was written, you went to a store and rented a movie, and different kinds of movies had different prices and different renter points and so on. So a regular movie might have 1 point or a one price, but a new release might cost you extra, and a children's release might cost you a little less or something. So we'd like to be able to create new types of movies to represent that. And the other thing is we'd like to be able to create new types of statements. So this one, if we look back at the test, it's sort of a text statement. We got new lines, we got tabs listing the movies, but there's nothing fancy. We might like to make a statement that formats in HTML, say. All right. So with something like this, we got this big method. We really just want to make some progress breaking it up, and so that we can kind of see what's really going on. So let's see. So here we've got the rentals, more elements. So we're walking through them. Notice it's using a vector, so it's a pretty old style format thing. I don't know if the generics were in Java at the point this was written, but they're certainly there now. So I'd like to sort of flip these two lines a little just to make it so that the calculating the rental and walking through that list of rentals becomes more clear. And so kind of what's going on here, I've got this result, and we've got rental record for so-and-so's name. Then we walk through, and the only thing we're accumulating is down here, the movie's title and the value of the thing, and then some footer lines. So it's a pretty standard report, and we can make some progress just kind of extracting out the chunks of it just to kind of give ourselves a little more clarity on that. Because this thing is depending on the contents of things, so get name coming from the fields in this, I'm going to extract that out just temporarily here, and just to kind of make this header method depending on the contents of things. So we'll call this just header. Okay. So this string, now we get a result that's really just the header of the name, and we could have used a string builder for this thing because it really is just accumulating, but I'll leave that for later if it's an issue. Okay, then the next thing is the footer. I'm going to bounce down there, and really it's adding these two lines with total amount and frequent renter points. I don't really want to pass the result in, so let me make a little temporary string for this. So we'll let the tool do it. Let's call this footer 1 for now, and same thing for footer 2. Okay, since they're not changed by this, I can move these up a little closer together, and I'll make my own kind of non-tool refactoring. I can make my own footer, and then I can just add that to the result and get rid of this one. Okay. So this stuff is simplified a little bit, and now I can extract this out as a method. Footer. Notice it's taking the total amount and the renter point, so that's what I expect. And I'll just inline this. Oops. Try again. Inline this. Okay. Now I think this comment is worthless, so let me delete that. All right. So we have the header, we have the footer. Let me just put them in opposite order. Okay. I could add these in. I can change it to use the string builder later and all that, but I'm really trying to get the overall shape of things. So let me tackle that now. So I'm left with this. I'm left with this big chunk in the middle on the while loop. And when I look at it, what I see is it's really doing several things. It's got this amount, which is being computed for each line. So how much does the movie cost, basically? We're calculating the renter points, but really that's the total renter points down here. And we're also calculating total amount. So this loop is essentially doing three things. And it's okay that it is, but it'd be nice if it were a little tighter, and only doing one thing in three separate loops might be a better way to go. One thing I see here is I've got this rentals vector, and really that is being treated as a list of rentals. And yet there's kind of a domain concept that's not coming out. So each individual rental corresponds to one rented movie. The set of these rentals corresponds to like one checkout transaction or something like that. And right now the type doesn't even reflect the generic. So at some point I may want to extract this into its whole separate object that represents the rental as being a conceptual thing, the list of rentals. But for now, I would like to just I'd like to modernize it a little bit. So let me just do something we call putting a parallel implementation. So really, it'd be nice if this was a list of rental, and I'll call it my rentals for now. New array list of rental. Okay, and we'll let this take that and that. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is make a parallel change. So every time I add to the underscore rentals, I'm going to also add to my rentals. And I'm basically trying to shift from using the one to using the other. So we'll add rental, and for a little temporary while, I've got both sets, both lists being filled up. Okay, and then when I see where are they being used, well, I've got rentals.elements. Okay, so let me move this line down a little bit. We'll try and get all the loop overhead together there. Okay, and it's safe to move because these computations have nothing to do with the rentals. Okay, so I should be able to run tests. I did run them before the camera got rolling, but we'll run them again here. Okay, they're all rolling. Still good. So adding a new field that's nobody else touching, but we're just putting things in, seems okay, basically. And we're going to switch things around a little bit. So now I'm putting stuff in all the time. Really what I would like to do is I'd like to use the new style syntax. So I'll just put in a comment here for a moment. So I'd like to say rental, and then we're calling it each of in my rentals, I guess. Okay, I would like that to be my loop header instead of these three lines. So let's just try it. And I've done it right. At least there's no syntax errors. It seems like I'm okay. So I've done a valid switch. Okay, and these lines are no longer interesting. Okay, and if you notice rentals, who's using rentals now? Okay, we'll do Alt F7. The only place it's being used is here, so no one's looking at it. We're only adding things to it. So putting things in a list we're not going to look at doesn't do any good. And then it's light gray because it's not being referenced, and we can just get rid of it entirely. Okay, so I've shifted that type. It's a little more convenient for me to work within the loop, but still I have a twinge saying like, oh, this thing is probably a separate concept, and we'll see if we get that far. I'm not sure if we'll have time to fix that one with the other ones we're doing. But at this point, I've got a loop across all the rentals. I calculate this amount, calculate the frequent renter points, accumulate those, and in addition to putting this amount in the report, I also calculate the total amount. So I would like to be able to calculate the frequent renter points, let's say, let's take those separately, and the total as separate loops. So I'm going to do a copy of these. Let's see if I can. Well, I guess I've forgotten the magic clicks that do it. Okay, this loop is my loop. I'm going to take a copy and make a second copy if I can manage it. And this second copy, I'm going to manage capture the frequent renter points again. So let's just pick up this much. I'm not going to worry that I've calculated it once for the moment, but I'm just going to restrict this thing so that it only worries about the frequent renter points. So only lines of code that have to do with frequent renter points are going to stay in this second loop here. And we don't need, I'm sorry. Okay. So at this point, I calculated frequent renter points in the first loop, then I basically threw it away with 0, and I calculated it again just as an intermediate move there. So I run my tests, and I'm okay. So I don't really need that first computation of frequent renter points. So let's just get rid of it. Okay, and this now, it can move down because nobody's referencing it up there. So nothing's broken syntax-wise. So yeah, my theory was right. And we don't need this line because it's a duplicate of the previous line. Okay. And so now we've got a simpler loop up here that works with the amounts, and then a simpler loop down here. So we split the loop. Frequent renter points, we calculate it. Well, adding them up is pretty much what that does. Get a bonus for a 2-day release rental. Well, it's a release and it's days rented greater than 1. I think that comment's not really adding much either. So with that, I've got something that looks pretty isolated based on the rentals that calculates the frequent renter points. So let's pull this out for a moment. Just this occurrence. And the name doesn't matter for now. I'm just isolating it so I can, whoops. I'm trying to isolate this just so I can make a method for this one. So it's calculating frequent renter points. It's looking at the rentals, and we can return that here. So let's let the method do that, get frequent renter points. I don't know, I'm on a bit of a campaign to get rid of all these extra gets. It needs the rentals coming in, it returns an int, so it sounds pretty good. And we can inline this again. So this thing where I pull it out of the way, extract something, re-inline it, that's a pattern I use a lot when I'm doing these things. Okay, so now calculating frequent renter points is its own little thing, a little more isolated. I'd like to do the same thing for the total amount. So we'll select the loop down to here. I've made a copy. Okay, and just like before, we'd like to have this down here. Okay. All right, so the total amount is all this computation around this amount. Boy, that's really kind of messy. I'm feeling like I don't like where this is going. It's kind of like too much work to have this thing duplicated there. So let me put things back. Too much? Okay, make sure tests are good. So I took a little stab at this. Industrial logic, we use this term graceful retreat. You know, I tried something and I said, oh, it doesn't look so good. Let's back it out. So at this point, because this computation in the middle here about what's the amount for this amount is so complicated, I'd really like to clean that up a little bit first. So let's just try, let's see if we can just move this out. Okay, so let's see what we're doing here. We're looking at the rental, so it's going to need the rental coming in. Let the tool tell us. Get this amount. Let's call it amount for, and this will be rental. Okay, so now I'm saying for each rental, I can calculate the amount of it and then append that in the result string and then calculate the total amount. This thing, you know, everything in here is about rental, so that's not so good. But now my loop is simplified enough. I'm a little more happy to copy it and try again on that move I was going to make. So it's a lot smaller, a little easier to keep track of. Comment. Okay, this time I'm going to keep total amount. And again, in the intermediate state here, I'm recalculating it. There's no harm in that. At least I say that. And it's green. Okay, so I'm recalculating that thing, but now I'm going to pull this out of here and only calculate the result string stuff and then separately calculate the amount. So I can move this down and get rid of that duplicated line and should still run. Okay, and again, I'd like to be able to extract this little chunk out, and so I'll move this thing out of the way, just this occurrence. It's kind of a junk name because I'm not really going to use it for more than a moment or two. Okay, long enough to extract this, which is total amount for the list of rentals. Okay, you know, and really, it's really iterable. Okay, and re-inline that. Okay, pull this thing back in. Okay, so now I've got my calculating total amount, I've got my calculating renter points, I've got this calculation around the line item. Okay, and again, you know, it's like which one to move here. This isn't so bad. I guess I'd like to take care of this rentals. Okay, so let me just fix the name here. We'll just call it rentals. And this one's the one that bugs me because this thing is living on the customer object, and yet everything about it is looking up stuff in the rental. Give me the movie, give me the price code, give me the days rented. All that stuff is all about rentals. So when you have that situation, it really tells you like, this method belongs somewhere else. So let me do a move method. The tool says, hey, I should put it on rental for you since it's the parameter coming in. And we'll say, yeah, sure, that's great. Okay, so now the rental class has accumulated this thing and the customer class has lost it. So we're calling each rental, give me your amount. Okay, and you know, now I'm thinking this name, maybe amount would just be better. We don't have the argument in there, so it doesn't read right. Okay, so for each one of these amounts on each rental, go ahead and put that in the statement. All right, and let's go into rental. So we've done a little work on the statement. We probably could work around this to calculate the line items. We got the movie and the title and the amount, the things that go into the line items. We'll come back to that one in the statement. But notice the class is more about well, still fair bit about the statement. The customer is really the rentals and the name. So there's still work to do, and we'll get to that statement object. But in this attempt to kind of get rid of these, to allow for extending the price codes more easily, we want to move forward into this for now. You can do it either way. It's no biggie. Determine the amount for each line. That comment doesn't really tell me anything. Okay. So we look at this method now and we say, okay, what are you looking at? Well, it's looking at the days rented. It's looking at the movie's price code. And everything else is depending on those two things. Okay. So I'd like to pull this out again and say, really, if the core information is dependent on movie, which it looks like because even the constants are on the movie class. Let's go ahead and deal with those. Okay. Can I get a confirmation, Chris, that we're seeing video?
What do you mean?
You're seeing my screen?
Yep.
Okay. You never know with the presenting tools. Just had this moment of fear. Okay, right. So back to the. Thank you, Chris. Chris Freeman helping me out today. So I'm saying this block of code really depends on days rented and the movie through the price code. So I'd like to parameterize this little block a little bit. So one thing I'm going to do is say, days rented is information from the rental. So you can see it in the constructor up there, and let's pass that in and let movie own the problem of the price. So again, I'll just pull this. It's got 5 occurrences, which are all the ones in here. So we'll replace all 5 of these. And I'm just pulling out a little variable just to kind of get it out of the way. Days rented, that's a good enough name for now. Okay. And then, so if I try and capture this code, and I look at it, it's going to take this amount, okay, coming in, and days rented. That doesn't seem quite right. Okay, let's get this down here. I'm calculating this amount. I would like to just have it all in one place. Okay, so if you knew the days rented, you could calculate this thing. So that would be an improvement. But I really want to be passing the movie in as well, because I think the computation belongs over on movie. So I'm also going to extract out a variable for that, just to get that there. And I'll move it up out of the way. And now when I look at extracting the method, it's got the days rented and the movie. I think that would come in the other order better. Okay. And I'll just call it amount for now. It's got different arguments, so it doesn't mind. But so I'm saying, I'd like to parameterize this thing on these two things. I'm using IntelliJ to just let me know which one is which fields are needed and so on. So they're coming in there. Now my amount method, the original one just has the two, calculates the two things, the days rented and the movie. And then this one is all about the amount and the price code and the days rented it's given. So I'd like to move this over to movie. Okay, it gives me a choice. That's fine. We'll make it public. Okay, so we've moved amount depending on days rented over to movie, and back in rental, this thing is much smaller now. We might decide later whether or not this is worth having its own little separate method for, but for now we'll just leave it, and I'm just inlining things to make it a little more readable. So amount, now if you want to calculate the amount of a rental, it's the look at the movie and ask the movie what amount does it pay or does it cost for days rented? So we've got this thing down over into movie as well. Okay, and now what I'm really seeing here, we kind of finally got to the meat of this challenge, that we'd like to think these might be separate classes rather than codes all over the place. So the switch statements, if you remember back to the frequent renter points, they depended on whether it was new release or not. So we already have this concept as well, that the renter points also depend on the type of the pricing. And so when we want to extend this thing, we'd like to put all that together in one place and not have to open up every switch statement or if statement that depends on these price codes. Okay, now get price code is just an integer. Okay, so there's a little trickiness. We want to, we would like to make this thing depend on a separate, we'll call it price object. And there's different ways to go about it. So let's see how do we want to do this? We want to, we'll want to create a new price object. And I think for now, we'll start off, we'll just let the price object know the price code. So it's just part of what it has there. It knows the price code for now, but eventually we'll be able to get rid of these price codes and leave these things like regular and new release as little subclasses on there. So one way I can do this is sort of like I switched over the vector of rentals to an array list of rentals. I can also kind of try and move into a price code that knows what's going on. So I'm going to create another little parallel object and try and push all the information over there, and let it be kind of the anchor for where things are going to go. And once I've created that object, I can then move this method, the calculation of price code, onto, or the calculation of price based on price code, over onto the price object. So let's just make up one. Okay, so private price. I'll follow the convention here. Price. Okay, doesn't exist. Okay, so let's just create it. And I'm just working in the empty package for now. Okay, so I've got a price object here. What I'd like to do is store the price in the price object, the price code in the price object. So I'm gonna make my little parallel one, is going to be a new price with the price code. Okay, and this constructor doesn't exist yet, so let's go ahead and create that. Okay, price code is an int for now, and that's fine. The name is fine. Whoops. Well, I'm not sure what we did there. Okay, so we've got a class price with a constructor price code. We're creating it, giving it there. So whenever we set price code, we really want to set price as well. Now it looks like nobody's using set price code, which is kind of interesting in itself, but I'm really after keeping the semantics the same. So if the rule is, let's get the setters right. So anytime I write to price code, I want to write to price. Okay, and so in this set price, we'll do the same thing. So again, I'm taking the object and doing the same thing whenever it's set. And if I look for references to price code, okay, they're in gray here. The initial declaration, the new price using it, package local, doesn't matter, and price equals new price code. Okay, so those are the two places. It's safe enough to do that. But what I want to do at this point then is I'd like to move get price code. So just like the case with the rentals, I've moved all the writing into my parallel object, and now I'd like to make it responsible for the return results. Okay, so we would like to do this, return price dot price code. Okay, and comment this out so that this object is responsible. And Oops. Okay, and this method doesn't exist, so we're going to have to create it. Okay. And you can see we really need to save this thing here. Oh, let's, okay. So save this one, create a field for the parameter. I'll follow the underscore convention. All right, and then return that thing. Okay, so price really is just, at this point, just keeping track of the price code, nothing more. And the only place that accessed the price code, it was all funneled through this get price code method. So in principle, if I've done it right, this should all still be good. Okay, good. So now price code, we're saying who's using price code? Well, I'm not returning it, so I'm never looking at it. I think it'll give me a little warning. No. Okay. Here's a setter place. So in theory, since I'm only looking at price, I should be able to get rid of the two setting places. Okay, and it should be safe. Whoops. Yeah, see, gotta watch things. Okay, so I get rid of the two places that set the old structure, and the sloppiness costs me, doesn't it? Okay, here's my arg, my price code. All right. Okay, thought I'd get an extra warning there, but anyway. All right, so at this point, we have the price code is all encapsulated into the price object. The access through it here, okay, we'd like to, again, we're going to try and move this thing. So just like before, I'm going to extract out of the way. Okay, I'm going to move this down. Okay, and let's inline this. I'm going to keep the copy where it is. Okay, and well, I think I'm going to inline this one too. Okay, so in effect, I'm looking for the price object, so I'd rather extract that. So let me make that the object I'm caring about. Now, just to make sure I'm keeping them all straight, and move things down so they're together. So again, I'm saying the things I'm depending on, I'm kind of pulling out above so that the rest of the method is parameterized on the thing I want to be parameterized on. So I would like to move all this to price, and so I'm pulling this out of the way. Now with that, everything that goes in, it looks like it's looking at the price, where it'll get the price code. It's looking at days rented, which is the parameter here. So I believe I can just extract all this. And I'll just keep calling it amount all the way down. And again, just for my own conceptualization, I think the price comes first. It doesn't really matter. Okay, and I can inline this thing again. So again, we're creating this kind of delegating method. So you're seeing this path of delegating from the customer to the rental to the movie to the price. We might be able to find some way to cut that out a little bit. But the real step here is I want to move this thing over to price. Okay, so it's taking, whoops, let's try this one. It's taking several steps to get here, but we'll be at the point where we've isolated this thing, and amount can be public over there. Okay, and movies now much simpler. We're still talking about price codes, which I don't think is particularly ideal, but we know its real function now. It knows its title, and it, given the days rented, it can tell you what the cost is. And then down in price here, you know, at last we're kind of like to the leaf of this thing. So it took several pushes to get it down there. We're holding the price code. We've got the amount. We calculate that based on the price code, which is the little accessor there. Okay, and we go across there. So now we're finally ready to start creating subclasses on this thing. Okay, and you know, kind of how we're going to do this. you know, it's we're still passing price in through this thing. It would be nice if I could push that out. So what I would really like to do, you know, it this constant out here, I would really like that to be the price object in the first place. So let me try pushing this out. We would like a price object coming in. So we get this new price. So let's change the order a little bit. Okay. And let's see if I can convince it. No, it's going to create a method. I would like a constructor. So I will just, I'll just put it in movie string title. And I would like the price. Here. So if you had this constructor or use this constructor, he's still going to say the title, and he's going to just save the price that he's given. So I really wish I had this constructor, because way out here in the test, I would like to create a new movie with that constructor. So let's go back here to movie. And the insight I have is I can delegate this. Okay, so this first constructor, the original one, it's really the same as this with title and this. Okay. So my claim is I've shifted things around enough. If you call the original constructor, I'll create the price for you and store it. And if you pass in the original constructor directly, I'm just happy you gave me a price to work with. So I'm trying to move away from that constant a little bit. Okay, so let me run tests. Okay, nice change. And you know, so what I'd like to do, and I think the tool will do it, is I'd like to make everything use this constructor, and I think I can inline this. Is that true? Yeah. So the 6 occurrences, let's cancel that. The 6 occurrences are these here. So this is exactly what I want. So you know, when the tool does the right thing for you like this, you know, you gotta love it. So let's try again, make sure the test pass, good, and look back at customer test. All right, so now we've got the prices there, and we're using the price object throughout. So we've kind of shifted this thing so that the price codes are really only used here and down in the price. Okay, so movies don't know about them or anything else at this point. So this lets me start moving towards my subclasses. So I would like to say, let's just pick regular. You know, it would be nice if I could say regular price. Okay, and I don't really need to say movie.regular, but let's just leave it there for now. Okay, I can create the class regular price, and it's going to know that it extends price because of the context, and this is the price code. Okay, we got price. We still have to have the price code in the constructor, so we can use it there. Okay, it's going to be super with price code. Okay, that's one way I can do it. But I would really like for the regular movie to know its own price code. I mean, really, I'm trying to get rid of the price code, so it's almost not going to matter. If I know that I'm only ever passing in movie.regular, I can do that. Okay, ignore the price code. Okay, now I haven't moved any of the methods or anything yet, but price code is no longer being used. So let's modify the method. Whoops. Command F6, yeah. That price code is not being called, so let's just remove it. Okay, and it's on the object knows about it, but nothing else does. Our test just uses regular price. So let's do this one too while I'm thinking about it. Okay, so at least the regular price movies, they're the subclass, but all the methods defer up to the superclass methods. Okay, but we should be running okay even with them. Okay, so let me move these now. I want to start moving amount in. All right, so what we're going to do is we'll copy this thing in. We'll move it a copy down to regular price. Okay, so it's a complete copy of the parent method, and it could it's perfectly fine to run. I mean, there's no issue around it. But what we want to notice is the only lines that can get executed are the this amount, and then these 3 lines that correspond to movie.regular. All the other cases, these 2 cases can't happen because we only create a movie.regular. So let's go down and we can just delete these rows or these cases. That's still the same. We don't even really need the switch statement. That's still the same. And we get that. We'll format. Okay, so this is the branch of code. You start with 0, you add 2. Okay. Can we fold this together? Be nice. Join declaration and assignment. Okay, we can simplify this. Okay, so the amount for a regular price movie is 2. If the days rented is more than 2, you calculate the rest of that formula and return it. Okay, so this should be fine for all those regular cases. And now in price, we peeled off this movie.regular case, and we made it so the only time anybody calls that is when they've created a regular price object. So we can kill that. Again, there's no harm in that. Okay, and so I'm going to do the same thing for new release and children's. Okay, so here's new release. We'll again make up a class, new release price. I'm going to hard code that. Okay, so we'll just take this, create a class. Don't care about the package. Okay, he wants a constructor. All right, we're going to pass in this again. And I took it out, so it doesn't really need it. Okay, and we didn't use it in the test, so that's fine. Once again, everything should be the same. It should all delegate to the parent method, defer to the parent method. Let's get this one too. New release. Okay, should be safe. Okay, and now we've got new release price. Let's go to the price code. Again, the only method that's interesting is this one. We'll copy in, and I'm going to be a little bolder this time and just make my changes. So new release, amount days rented times 3. Join, simplify, and inline. Okay, so price for a new release, 3 times the number of days you want to rent it. All right, and then back up here in price. Again, because I made sure all the places that call the constructor with new release only go through the subclass, then this should all be safe again. Okay, very good. And then finally, we got children's. Okay, create the class. Extends price. We know it's really price. Okay, save. Copy this one. So you can see I'm trying to get a little faster as we do the same one over and over. And also just the fact that this method is getting smaller and smaller certainly makes things easier as well. All right. This amount, the only case is children's. We don't need the switch statement stuff. Fold. And so that's Alt Enter there. Alt Enter again. Okay. And so for children's, we have the situation there. Okay, so test should pass. All right. And now we've got the pattern here. If we get rid of this case for children's, right, there's really nothing left. So what we're going to say is this is going to be an abstract method. So we'll make an abstract class. Clear this abstract. Spell it correctly. Okay, so we're saying price codes always get delegated to their subclasses. They're the only ones that know what the price is. Okay, set price code. I'm going to say at this point, we're not using this method. No one can create a price because it's abstract. You have to know what price it is. Let's comment this for now, but I think the method's not being used. We're not gonna worry about it. Okay, we'll try again. If it were an issue, I would have to do some sort of decision. Let's see, where was that movie? Yeah, I would have to do some sort of like little factory or something to say, oh, if the price code is this, create this one and so on. But instead, I pushed it all out here and I just said, you should know what kind of price you're asking for, price strategy maybe. Okay, so these things, now when I look at price, like who's calling this? Okay, it's only this place, so who's calling that? Okay, only the movie one. And who's calling the movie one? Oh, 7. Okay, so we're back up here. So the only reason we need the price code at this point is we've got the frequent renter points. So I'd like to do is move this calculation of frequent renter points down as well. Okay, so this thing here. So really this chunk of code is calculating the render points based on the movie type and the days rented. So let's modify this a little bit. So what I'm gonna say is this is the total. All right, so let me change the name of this. Total renter points. Okay, but what I'd like to do is calculate a temporary one, just kind of like we did this amount. Okay, so let's make a this render points. Okay, and really I started at 0. I'm adding 1 for this particular movie. Okay, and so let me hold off updating the total rents till the end. And I'm going to add in this renter points. Okay, and so in this case, this renter points, well, let's go back. It was 1 because everybody starts out 1. We could do this render points plus, okay, which should be legitimate. So it starts off 1. In some cases, it's 2, and add that in. So let's make sure that runs. So anytime I start arguing with myself, I really need to stop and just run it. Okay, so my contention is, since it always starts out 1, this render points plus plus is always going to be 2. So we could assign it like that. Okay, and again, I'm saying that should run the same because it always was either 1 or 2 coming through. But now this chunk is really what depends on the movie and the days rented. So I'm going to do the same kind of move I've done before. And I'm going to try and pick up the pace because we're running a little low on time, as happens. So we'll pull out days rented. I've got rental. Okay, so let's move this down. Okay, so each is a rental. So if I extract out this chunk now, renter points. Okay, this is the one that calculates it on each rental. So let's move this over to the rental. Okay, and then back in customer here, we're looking at each one, days rented. Inline that. That's reasonable. And then I'm just calculating it and adding it in again. I'll just inline that. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward at this point. Just add up the renter points for each rental based on its days rented. Okay, so let's look at this thing. Okay, now again, movie, pull out the variable, slide it out of the way, which I sure wish it would do automatically. Okay. This chunk now depends on the movie and the days rented, so those are the arguments I like. And this, again, it's just renter points. I'll move it again. Whoops. Move it over to movie. And this is why I wasn't so worried about the name. Okay. Render points over here. Now it's looking at price code. Let's go back to rental. I can inline this. So if you're trying to calculate the renter points for a movie, you just take the movie and ask it for its a rental. You ask the movie for its rental points. Okay. Price code. Let's try inlining this. I'm going to keep the method. Okay, because I'm trying to get to the price here. So let's extract that variable. Put up, extract again. Move it over to price. Okay, and I've been moving and moving. Let's run the tests. Okay, so this public check on movie. We can inline this. Okay, and then on price, now we can see this case is simpler than the case we had before, because all we're looking at is the case for movie. Everything else is just going to return 1. So let's just move this one down to new release. Okay. Renter points is 1. If the days rented is greater than 1, well, and the price code is movie.new release, we know that's always true. Okay, so really we're just looking at days rented greater than 1. We're going to return 1 or a 2, and we should be able to, let's see, can we fold this thing? Yeah, I can do this. I don't know. I feel like the tool's able to do this for me, but I'm just saying now, if it's 1, return that. Otherwise, return this. So let's see. It should be able to do this. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Okay. Join declaration. Okay, and inline. So for the case of new release, if the rental points is more than 1, it's 2. Otherwise, it's 1, just like the others. And should pass. Okay, and then back up in price. If it's not a new release, okay, then this clause can't be entered at all, so it never can be 2. So it's always going to be that case of 1 for the other 2 cases. And we're making a bit of a decision that says this is really sort of the normal case, but I think it's a plausible enough version of things. So to say that you get 1 point unless it's a special situation. Okay, so so now we're basically at the point I would like to be with price. We've got price, we've got subclasses. If you wanted to add a new kind of movie, maybe a free rental or something that you get no renter points and it costs you nothing, it would be very easy to create a new subclass for this thing and let it go. So I think we've dealt with the half of the problem of types of movies, and depending on that, we'd like to introduce a new type of movie. There's a little more cleanup I would do right now, and I notice I don't have time to go through the details, but really nobody's using this price code anymore. So you can look around and verify that. But if you do, it's if referenced in movie, and movie's price code is no longer used. So we could remove that bit of pricing. So I'll leave it there. We can also go ahead and go back and work on the statement a little bit, given more time. But at this point, it's really pulling out a line item for each row of the rental, and including that, and then I would create a statement class that holds the bulk of those calculations, and I could subclass that for HTML or regular text. Okay, so let me just bounce back here because I do want to touch a couple things before we go. So Martin Fowler, thanks. I do want to let you know we do have a discount going on. You may have seen this either in the tweet or in the album if you tried the kata for yourself at industriallogic.com/shop. If you use the code video store at the checkout, so you basically choose some albums and use that code, we'll give you a 63% discount, which is a pretty good discount through Monday, which is Labor Day for us, but Monday, September 5th. You're welcome to share the code with others. So just kind of closing, what have we done, or what did we like to do? So one thing we were consistently doing was looking for the natural home for behaviors. So if a chunk of code really depends on some other object, maybe the calculation or the behavior belongs over there too. So we did a lot of that, moving things, starting up from customer all the way down 3 or 4 levels into price in this last example. For the process of converting this integer code to polymorphism, Martin Fowler's book is great on this and uses this example, so you can definitely see his take on it. But what we did was we'd isolate some code to move. So we had the code for calculating amounts. We isolated it, we moved it onto price, and then we created one child at a time. We'd copy the parent code in, customize it to the child, and then simplify, I should say, the parent based on the fact that that child is no longer a concern. So we did that several times for both prices and at the end there for renter points. This notion, finally, be alert to missing objects. So the price object wasn't there at all. There's no statement object yet, and we see that that's kind of necessary. It feels a little funny that the customer knows the statement as it is, so there's something going on there. And then there's another missing object probably that represents that list of rentals. And if we had gone back to customer calculating the total rental points and the frequent renter point totals, both those belong on that object that is missing. So we can tell it's almost there, but not quite. So they show up all the time in things. It's very easy to miss them. So with all these, like all katas, I think this notion of practice, that's really where it's at. We really encourage that. You do get better. You can see even in the process of this hour, the first moving the first polymorphism over was a little slow, and it gets faster as you go. So thanks very much for watching with us today, and hope to see you next month. We'll have another kata then. Thanks. Goodbye.